Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. I am the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer, and this is my review for Carpathian Mountains, starring Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi, the man, the myth, the legend, the icon of gothic horror cinema, Dracula himself, a man so synonymous with the vampire mythos that even decades after his death in 1956, one merely has to say his name in a darkened room and somehow, a game developer has convinced him to star in a video game. Now, I don't know what said developer promised the Lugosi estate. I don't know what was discussed, what manner of contractual negotiation took place, what spiritual medium was hired to facilitate these conversations. But I must say, dear viewers, as a business proposition, getting a dead man to star in your game is an absolutely extraordinary achievement, and I take off my hat to them. Haha. And might I say, dear viewers, that Carpathian Mountains starring Bela Lugosi on PlayStation 4 is a sentence I did not expect to be saying in this lifetime, or apparently in Bela Lugosi's. Now, the year is 1451. Transylvania. Dracula's forces have spread across the Carpathian Mountains, corrupting villages, raising armies of monsters, generally making a complete and utter nuisance of themselves. The world teeters on the brink of eternal darkness. Into this chaos step two unlikely heroes. Their mission? To battle through haunted forests, cursed settlements, crumbling castles, and the general indignity of a 2D action platformer in order to reach, and presumably inconvenience, the Prince of Vampires himself. Now, I know what you're thinking, dear viewers. Oh, CG, you oh so talented chap, you. That sounds exactly like Castlevania. And to that I say, yes. Yes, it does. It sounds precisely like Castlevania. It is precisely Castlevania. If Castlevania changed its name, grew a small mustache, and said, No, I'm a completely different game. I have absolutely nothing to do with Simon Belmont. Who even is that? I've never heard of him. That is what Carpathian Mountains is. Which, I must be clear, is not necessarily a bad thing. Some of the greatest meals I have ever consumed were prepared from someone else's recipe. Whether the chef informed the original cook is, frankly, none of my business. Speaking of things that are none of my business, you may be wondering about Bela Lugosi's actual involvement in this game. Bela Lugosi starring in Carpathian Mountains, as the title boldly, confidently, and somewhat misleadingly promises. Well, dear viewers, and I'll be honest with you here, Bela Lugosi's involvement extends to approximately, and I'm being generous here, a brief likeness, a handful of visual references, and a short audio clip. That's it. That is his starring role. He's got more bloody screen time at a standard funeral. Though I must say, the man died in 1956. He's done remarkably well in the circumstances, and I shall say no more on the matter. Now, there are two playable characters in this bloody video game, so let me describe them to you in terms I believe you will find both accurate and illuminating. The first is Abbot Doran, a warrior monk. He uses a spear, he is dependable, he is methodical, and he absolutely does not have a vagina. The second is Irina Dracula, a vampire pyromancer with a complicated relationship with Dracula's bloodline. She uses a whip and devastating fire magic. She is faster, more aggressive, and she absolutely does have a vagina. These are the two options available to you, dear viewers, and I appreciate that this may be the most clinical character description in the history of video game reviews, but I am a man who values clarity above all else, and I believe I have painted an accurate portrait of both individuals. Dorin rewards patience and positional discipline. Irina rewards aggression and a complete disregard for personal safety, which is also, coincidentally, how I approach most of my relationships. The two characters genuinely change how the game feels. Certain encounters are dramatically different depending on which one you select. This is good game design. I will acknowledge it, and then move swiftly on before I say something complimentary about this game twice in the same breath. Let us discuss the graphics, dear viewers. Carpathian Night goes for what I shall generously describe as a 16-bit aesthetic. Flickering torchlight in castle corridors, storm clouds over ruined villages, dense forests that create a constant and convincing sense of dread. It is, atmospherically speaking, genuinely accomplished. However, I'll be honest with you, dear viewers. In terms of raw visual fidelity, these graphics are approximately as modern as a bloody Werther's original. In fact, I would say they look older than Mrs. Dracula's, they look older than Castle Dracula itself. They look older than Dracula. They look older than the concept of Dracula. They look, in summary, quite old, dear viewers, which is, I am told by several people who are wrong, absolutely the point. It is a stylistic choice. It is a love letter to the 16-bit era. It is, I concede, doing exactly what it says on the tin. The tin is simply very, very aged. I must, however, take a moment to address the soundtrack, because the soundtrack of Carpathian Night is one of the most remarkable auditory experiences I have had whilst fully clothed. It sounds, dear viewers, as though a Sega Mega Drive and a Super Nintendo were placed in close proximity to one another. The lights were dimmed, some ambient music was played, and nature was allowed to take its course. The resulting chiptune offspring of this digital union is, and I mean this, genuinely quite magnificent. It is energetic. It is atmospheric. It drives the action forward in precisely the manner great game music should. And on more than one occasion, I found myself tapping my foot at my own television, like a man who was entirely lost control of his lower extremities. I did not expect to be complimenting the soundtrack of a game called Carpathian Night starring Bela Lugosi, and yet here we are. Life is full of surprises, dear viewers. Most of them worse than this. Now let's get us down to the nitty-gritty nice and quickly, shall we? Because the gameplay of Carpathian Night is, how shall I put this, old school. Aggressively old school. Psychotically old school. Yes, there is knockback. Significant knockback. The kind of knockback that, upon receiving it, causes your character to sail backwards through the air like a confused seagull who has been gently struck with a cricket bat and has no earthly idea what has just happened to his afternoon. Yes, there are instant death bits. Yes, they are exactly where you do not want them to be. Yes, you will fall into them, and yes, you will do so repeatedly, across multiple attempts, with a gradually increasing sense of personal grievance that I cannot fully convey in this review without breaching community guidelines. Yes, the platforming is frustrating in the particular manner of a person who knows they are wrong but refuses, on principle, to admit it. The kind of frustration where you die and you understand precisely why you died and you resent the game deeply for being correct about it. However, and this is a significant however, the game, in its infinite and somewhat unexpected mercy, provides infinite lives and generous checkpoints, which means that when, and it is absolutely when, not if, you fall into a death pit for the 14th consecutive time, you are returned to the action moments later rather than being escorted back to the beginning of the level to contemplate your sins. Small mercies. I collect them, dear viewers, like postage stamps, only marginally less depressing. Now the boss fights. The boss fights of Carpathian Night are, and I'm going to reach for a somewhat unconventional metaphor here, dear viewers, for which I make no apologies whatsoever. The boss fights are more forgiving than Jesus after he just got laid. They are demanding, yes. They test your understanding of the combat system. Some require patience, others aggression, others the sort of desperate flailing that I believe is technically classified as improvised strategy. But they are fair, they are memorable, they are well designed, they are, in the context of everything this game throws at you beforehand, a genuine and welcome hand relief. Dracula's commanders provide excellent encounters. They are varied, they are interesting, they are, at no point, named Bela Lugosi, who, as we established earlier, is technically deceased and has already exceeded the terms of his contract by simply having his face in the game at all. Now, dear viewers, we need to address the count in the room. Dracula, much like his most famous appearances in the Castlevania series, a franchise to which this game bears absolutely no resemblance whatsoever, as we have firmly established. Dracula does not appear until the very bloody end. Pardon the pun. That one was intentional. I'm not always in control of myself, dear viewers, but occasionally I have my moments. The game is called Carpathian Night, starring Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi is Dracula. Dracula is the villain. The entire premise revolves around stopping Dracula. And yet, much like the man himself, he is nowhere to be bloody found for the vast majority of the adventure. He is in the title. His face is presumably on the box, and he turns up at the very end like a man arriving at his own dinner party 3 hours late, with absolutely no apology and an air of complete, unshakable superiority. I respect this, actually. As a personality trait, I might even adopt it. So, Carpathian Night starring Bela Lugosi. Is it a shameless Castlevania clone? Yes, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. Is Bela Lugosi's starring role somewhat overstated by approximately 94%? Demonstrably. Do the graphics look as though they were rendered on hardware that has since been declared a historical artifact by the relevant authorities? They do. Yes, and yet, the two characters are genuinely distinct. The boss fights are inventive, the atmosphere is committed, the soundtrack is the legitimate and rather accomplished offspring of two consoles who clearly had a wonderful evening together. And the whole thing, the whole mad, knockback-soaked, death pit-riddled, extremely deceased celebrity-endorsed package is oddly, stubbornly, infuriatingly enjoyable. I did not want to like this game, dear viewers. I want you to understand that. I approached it with my finest skepticism, fully loaded and ready to fire. And it just kept going. like Dracula himself. You can stake it, behead it, stuff its mouth with garlic, and drop it in a death pit, and it just gets back up and carries on platforming. For that sheer, obstinate refusal to be bad, I'm going to declare that Carpathian Night, starring Bela Lugosi, is very good. Bela Lugosi would agree with me. Probably. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another review by yours truly. If you enjoyed this little review of mine, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't enjoyed it, well then feel free to give me a thumbs down. But please remember the single most important thing I always tell you, dear viewer, and that is to always stay obsessed with gaming. Are you still here? Oh, you must have really enjoyed this video then. In that case, you had better subscribe to the channel and check out our other content. Otherwise, you're a booby pants, and no one wants to be a booby pants.